We are live. Welcome back, everybody. It is another episode of WP Townhall. This is the show that drops you deep into the heart of pivotal debates shaping the WordPress ecosystem. I'm Kevin Geary, joined, as always, by Mark Szymanski. There's our first notification going off in my computer. Let's do not disturb until this evening. That always works well. Okay, so if you are watching, you can watch this on YouTube. You can watch it on my Facebook channel. You can watch it on my X. Did we get it streaming to you, Mark? Or we got
not this time? StreamYard's a little weird. It's all good.
Okay,
yeah, it's on your stuff.
We'll figure it out. Okay, Mark, you just got back from a trip.
It was quite the trip. Yeah, all the way to Germany. That was fun.
CloudFest.
CloudFest, yes.
I haven't been to a CloudFest before. Would you recommend it?
I mean, I'm definitely gonna do some content on it. I would say for you particularly, you'd probably find some value in it. It's really a big festival though, man. It's like 12,000 people. It's in a theme park. There's a lot to do, but at the same time, it's a big expo hall with like a lot of bigger companies, not just like smaller ones that like just there's a WordPress area, but it's like, you'll see Intel, you'll see AMD, you'll see those types of companies there. So that's probably not where the most amount of value is, but there's a lot of really good people there that you could connect with. And so if you're out there listening, I would definitely recommend for those reasons. Yeah. Cause I made a ton of great connections.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Sounds like fun. Did we decide on whether we're supposed to do this view or this view?
I like this one. This one's nice.
You like this one? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go with this. Mark, we have a very important development on the WP Townhall side of things. We're just going to go right into it, guys. Today's episode is sponsored by OmniSend. And I think Mark do you have a little banner to put up there, Mark?
We got a little banner. We got a logo too, if I can get it here.
OmniSend is the go-to email marketing platform for more than 125,000 businesses. It's all about powerful features and a simple-to-use package combined with top-notch support from real people with real answers. In fact, brands that use OmniSend earn $68 for every $1 spent. That's nearly double the industry average. If you want to generate more revenue with less hassle, set up a free account today by going to wptownhall.show/OmniSend. And if you decide you want to switch, OmniSend will handle the migration for free. That's a $1,000 service at no cost to you. Once again, wptownhall.show/OmniSend. All right. And thank you to OmniSend for sponsoring this.
Hell yeah.
The title of our episode is The Faulty Premise That Ruins Page Builders. I think we have... I told you to line up a bunch of, questions and, you said, hey, not going to take it easy on you. Okay. Which is good. I think we need to set up a really good discussion here. I think what I'll do, should I just give them the faulty premise? Should I just get that as the foundation of the episode?
I'm not even 100% sure. I could guess what it is, but I do think it'd be good if you just kind of set the stage there and then we could kind of unpack it. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess before we dive too deep into this, first of all, let's get to let me pull up the comments here. I like having the comments up here. Okay, good. People are rolling in. I do want to say this is when we get to the viewer participation segment, very important. Like the thing with WP Townhall, you don't just sit around and listen. You get to participate in the conversation if you want to. Go to wptownhall.show/join. That link will get you into the room with me and Mark, okay? And we can elevate you onto the stage and you can be part of the discussion. You can ask your questions. You can make your own arguments. We have a banner rolling right here at the bottom of the screen where you can see that. So if you just come in, you just chill out, you just sit in kind of the green room area. And then when we're ready for the viewer participation segment, which usually happens around the 45-minute mark, sometimes a little bit sooner, you can come on. You can be part of this discussion. Okay. So wptownhall.show/join. All right. The premise is this. Essentially, if we go back into the eras of WordPress that I've covered before, but era 2 was the era where like page building really started. Okay. Like if you think of era 1 as like traditional WordPress, like just blogging themes and The themes were very, very limited. You couldn't do a lot of stuff. Era 2 started to say, okay, well, we're going to develop this concept called like a page builder where people can do more like drag and drop type stuff and style some stuff and yada, yada, yada. And that's where the premise became like, okay, we need to design an interface that is really friendly to beginners and lay people, because developers at the time, people who know how to create their own themes, they would not use a page builder. They would just create their own theme. And it kind of this solidified even into era 3, which is like more advanced page builders. This same premise was followed as if it was still true, as if the idea is that a developer would never use a page builder. And it kind of bypasses the idea that a page builder could, in fact, innovate a professional workflow. So it could be a tool that a developer who knows how to write code would still prefer to use if it was built correctly. Now, along the way, because none of the page builders followed that premise, all of the page builders followed the premise of we have to make it easy. We have to, like, lay people should be able to use it. By the way, that's where they see all the money, because they see a gigantic pool of people who really don't know how to build websites. And they're like, if we empower these people, this is the Wix concept, this is the Squarespace concept, this is the WordPress page builder concept. If we empower these people to build websites, we not only will that, they'll love it, but we'll just make gobs of money. That's like kind of the whole concept of page building. Again, on the idea that professionals would not do this. They would not use a tool like this. And because all the page builders were designed for lay people and beginners, professionals looked at them and said, I would never use that. And of course you wouldn't, because it doesn't have the features that you care about, and it doesn't output code the way you want your code output, and it doesn't give you enough control. It only introduces limitation. And so the premise became true in the mind of developers, because they looked at all of the existing tools and they said, yeah, for sure. I don't want to use that. I would never use that. But again, it's all a faulty premise. And what we have to look at now going forwards, and this is the premise of Etch, and this is kind of where era 4 WordPress is going to go. Not I think will go. This is where era 4 is going to go. Especially as we get into the realm of AI, which you may have questions about, but especially given the facts of this new era. We now have the opportunity to say, okay, what if we built and designed a visual development environment that professionals would actually want to use, that found ways to innovate a professional workflow and didn't have the limitations of the existing page builders and didn't do things kind of backwards or oddly or in a proprietary fashion like these other page builders do? What if the environment spoke the language of web design, the language that you already know as a professional? What if it spoke that language? What if all it did was expedited the work that you do, does a lot of the heavy lifting for you, but without the limitations, and it just made you work faster, and it was a joyful experience to use? What would that look like? And that's the era that we are currently entering right now. But again, the other page builders fail and have been ruined. And I've talked about this ad nauseum. They've been ruined by this focus on lay people and beginners, because the decisions that they make, when you ask that question, how do we make it easy for beginners? How do we make it easy for lay people? The answers that are going to come back are the exact answers that ruin the thing that you are building. Okay. So I'm just going to, that's what I'm putting out on the table. That's the premise of today's discussion. I'll let you take it from there, Mark.
Gotcha. Okay. I appreciate that. Yeah, like you mentioned there, Kevin, I do have some questions lined up. I feel like, that's funny that we mentioned AI, because I do want to get to that. In order to prepare for this, I don't know if you saw this announcement recently, but Claude now has web search. So it didn't before. It was just like kind of closed source based off their model or whatever. What I did to prepare for this, I asked Claude, I was like, hey, do you know about Kevin Geary and Etch? And it's let me search it up.
Yeah.
So then I did that. And I think we're in an interesting time now, because correct me if I'm wrong, you're about 6 months into the Etch. It's like right around the corner, right?
We are. This is, I think, Monday's demo. There's a public demo on Monday. First time the general public will get to see Etch. I think that is exactly the 6-month mark.
Okay. So I think, with this episode, obviously we want to like kind of toe the line. Obviously Etch is coming and there's like a huge, and like, it's a huge, we'll call it like the, the entrance into Era 4. And obviously you can kind of already see too, I think it might be interesting to talk about some other ones, like Elementor has their new version coming out. It seems like a lot of things are kind of like falling kind of in line and, continuing the trends here. So there's definitely a lot to talk about. But with Etch specifically being at this point, I go back to that story that I was telling you about, the Claude thing. I searched it and it gave me like all these different, like cited articles of people talking about like, oh, some people are skeptical about like timeline of Etch and all this sort of stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
So I kind of want to like, I don't want to make it all about you and Etch, but I want to talk about like kind of this general software thing too, and this page builder land in general. There's so many things going on. There's so many different options out there. We see YouTube videos all the time. I cover them, you cover them, right? Like all this stuff. It's amazing though, how fast things move and how quickly you can either be like, oh, that was legit or that wasn't legit. I think last time we were just on, where were we at? Where did you introduce yourself as the CEO of Vaporware of something like that? I mean, like, it's just like,
where were we? No, that was a WP Townhall. That was the last was it? I don't know.
No, I think it was the Bridge Builders. It was Bridge Builders. You were introducing yourself. Yes,
that's what it was.
So it's just kind of funny. I mean, the whole thing is like, again, I'm just trying to pull these pieces together because it's really funny, because it gave me some really good things. It gave me some questions. And I want to dive into the AI thing at some point, because I utilize it so heavily in my workflow. And I'm in a position right now where, you know me, you've given me some nice, kind of behind the scenes stuff that I think now is public about like kind of all the inputs and everything like that. I think at the very beginning of this, if we're trying to go in kind of like logical order, what problem does Etch solve? I feel like you've kind of already talked about it there, but like, and again, not necessarily making about Etch, it's just the comparison that we're making. Like what are you seeing Etch versus all the other ones and all these other things? And like specifically, we'll talk about like Era 4 builders.
Yeah.
That there's maybe a ton of problems, but I guess really to summarize, it was just the language of web design being at the core of it, right?
Yeah. Well, to understand the major benefits, it really depends on what camp you're in. So if you are in a beginner camp, Etch is still for you to a huge capacity, depending on your mindset, right? If you're an intermediate, for sure. Like if you're and I have an article on Etch's website about who is Etch for, which I think everybody should read, because people will think, well, if it's a pro tool or it's for aspiring professionals. It's like the second group, as we refer to them. That's the two groups. It's professionals and aspiring professionals. It's not for a beginner who's like a hobbyist. Like, well, I mean, they could even be a hobbyist, but I have a lot of hobbyists in my audience who love to build their own sites. It is not money for other people. They are not an agency. They are not a freelancer, but they want to do it right. They care about craftsmanship. They actually want to learn. They want to learn the language of web design. They want to feel empowered by knowing the language of web design and doing things the right way. They don't want to just whip something together in Wix or Squarespace or wherever and call it a day. That's not what they're here for. It's a hobby. Like if I did photography as a hobby, I'm not like, oh, I just am doing it as a hobby, therefore I want to be a shitty photographer. Like nobody says that, right? There are hobbyists that really want to do high quality work. I have a lot of those. Okay. So you can definitely be a hobbyist. It is for anybody who knows or wants to learn the language of web design and use a tool that respects that and doesn't limit them and has a quality output, right? So that automatically a lot of beginners fall into that bucket, because you have to start somewhere. You come into this game, and if you're saying, I want to do this as a profession, I want to make money at this, I want to be an agency, I want to be a freelancer, to me that says I want to like be proficient. Okay, that's like part of the word of profession, right? Is that I'm proficient at it. We should also like have probably a debate about like, what is a professional? Like, is it just somebody who accepts checks from people, or is there some other thing that goes along with that definition that everybody should consider? But if you are just a fly-by-night person, you're like, dude, I just got to, like my mom, like I got to whip up a Bunko Club website for my Bunko Club. Is she going to use Etch? No, 1,000%. No, that's not who it's for. Because she has no care to learn anything. to excel in this industry, to do anything beyond just, does a Bunko Club website for my Bunko Club exist or not exist? That's all she cares about. That is the perfect user to go to Wix or Squarespace or Elementor or whatever, right? That is not an Etch user. But anybody who wants to do professional work and aspires to a higher level would absolutely want to use Etch. So it really depends on who you are and what bucket you fall into. Now, in terms of actual pros doing work right now, why would they want to switch to Etch? They would want to switch to Etch because it expedites the work that they do, because it unifies. Like, this is like the biggest thing. It unifies their workflow. Right now, they're probably bouncing back and forth between WordPress admin and VS Code and a JSON file and 3 other things, and PHP and JavaScript, and all these things happening in all these different places, custom blocks. And then they're in the block editor trying to assemble things. We're like, oh, I don't have a block for that. Let me hop back over to VS Code and make up a custom block for that. By the way, I'm using a proprietary thing called ACF blocks to help me do this, because I don't even really I don't want to do all the work of an actual custom block. I mean, it's just on and on and on. They could just go into Etch. They could just do all of their work in Etch in one unified place, manage their media, custom post types and custom fields and relationships, never bounce around ever again. So they go from chaos to complete sanity. They're working at hyper speed now. All of the other features and innovations that are being built into to look at that workflow and say, how do we take a professional workflow and make it faster and make it easier and make it better? Nobody's ever asked that question before. So that's where we live. And those are the benefits that are going to come to an actual professional.
I know you have a whole blog post on this, and my thought for this is we set the stage with the Etch specific questions, because obviously that's the product that you guys are currently working on. It's based on this premise, but if we zoom out as we go further, because I do want to ask you, I want to kind of have this conversation. The professional debate is a really good one, and there's some other things that I feel like this is the core of, obviously because it's the product that you're working on, but like outside of that, there's so many other topics that I feel like don't get talked about enough that I'd like to hit on. But at the core of it again here is, I know you have a blog post on this, is Etch a page builder?
Etch is a page builder as much as an iPhone is a phone. That's the comparison that I use, right? Okay. So in 2005, is that when the iPhone came out? When did the iPhone? It was somewhere around there, right? 2004, yeah. 2005. If you showed up at a party and you were the only person that had an iPhone, everybody else had the old, flip phone style phones, and you put it on the table and you were like, you guys got to take a look at this. And everybody crowded around. And then they were just like, that's just a phone, right? You'd be like, I mean, it is a phone, but like, is it really just a phone? That's what we're dealing with here, right? So it does page building things. Is it a page builder? Could you just say that's just a page builder? You can't, because first of all, the way that it does things is different from how every other page builder does them. Their limitations that other page builders have don't exist. It does things that other page builders don't do. It is radically different. So you can't just be like, well, that's a page builder. Okay, I mean, it does page builder things. That's like taking an iPhone or any smartphone and be like, that's just a phone. It's not a fair label. It's not an accurate label. So we call it a visual development environment. That's what it is. It goes above and beyond what a traditional page builder is known to do, even though it allows you to do page building things.
Gotcha. Okay. So then maybe one of the other things that again, going back to that Claude story, because it talked a lot about I use AI like so much now. It's crazy. Like it's just to completely
way,
like
Grok is insanely better than Claude. I don't know if you've realized this yet.
I just got the Grok beta app, I feel like, on my phone like this morning or something. I feel like I saw it downloaded. I haven't tried it. I feel like as much I tried it, but didn't it get updated? Now it has like its own
I don't know.
website.
I don't track the updates and all that stuff. It does have its own website for sure. Yes, it has.
I've been trying to follow automation and AI a lot closer. I know that like Google just had Gemini Pro 2.0, 2.5 come out. Apparently fire. There's a new OpenAI model. I mean, it's shit moves so fast. But
Yeah.
I went over there and I did that, and again, a lot of the criticism stuff popped up. So one of the I feel like one of the bows on the Etch side of things is 6 months in. It's, I mean, I would say it's obviously not vaporware. If you're in there, you've seen it, you've seen this stuff and everything like that. But also development timeline. Just a high level question: how has it been moving? Has it been faster, slower, more intense, or less intense than you thought it was going to be? Building something like this for a new era?
Uh, we're way ahead of schedule. It's been surprisingly faster and smoother than I imagined that it would be, which is just kudos to our team, essentially. I mean, they're amazing. We recently, I mean, I think there's 11 people working on Etch right now, 12 people total simultaneously. And I actually need to have Mateo, my CTO, on. We'll probably do this on the Etch channel. It's like I need to make an Etch channel. We'll have him on. But we're going to do a whole meet the team kind of segment type thing. But I think it's very important and this would be very helpful to other software developers, plugin developers, anybody, like for us to talk about the logistics and how we manage week to week to week and what things look like behind the scenes, and how specifically Mateo has led organizing our sprints and our conversations around sprints and how teams are created and yada, yada, yada. That would be a very, very helpful discussion for everybody. But to answer your question, we're far ahead of schedule. I think that what people are going to see I mean, if you look at the detractors and the naysayers, I mean, Etch wasn't going to exist for 2 years, right? It wasn't going to be able to do anything for 2 years. That was like the general consensus of the detractors. And the reality is that 6 months in, it does far more than in certain capacities, and the things that actually matter, it does far more than any other tool on the market currently does. Obviously there's still a long way to go and there's still a lot of stuff to button up, but what people are going to see on Monday, I think is going to be rather shocking to them. Given the timeline, I think that's been, and I say that because the people who have access to Etch now, that has been their standard conclusion is, and it actually, they leaves themselves asking, like, what has everybody else been doing this entire time? And that's, again, it's kudos to our team, but I think what people are going to see on Monday is going to be very exciting.
Okay. So I feel like I mean, obviously, probably a lot of the viewers kind of maybe they've already purchased Etch, maybe they've been seeing it, maybe, following you, obviously. So they kind of know like a lot of that. And I think that's good. I think that's a good premise to kind of set up because, again, you've been in the weeds of this. You're literally again, not necessarily a page builder, like, a special page builder, but like you're a page builder founder now. So so rather than, I feel like the topic of today's episode is, the way that I work that out in my head is that specifically through your eyes, potentially, you've gone through this thing of creating products for, other page builders that integrate and stuff like that. And now you're actually creating one. So like you have the best perspective on like what it is from the outside and then what it is from the inside, at least, in this 6 month run up here and prior as you were planning everything. So now if we start to zoom out a little bit and we talk about not just the faulty premise, but there's so many things around that core point there that, start to stem off of literally, I feel like your experience and just everybody else that's in this whole game of like, oh, which page builder should I use, or what's the best, or what things matter. You said something really important there. And I kind of want to hit on that one first, because all these things are relevant. I think one of the things that I see in these page builder conversations, and again, using your ethos of the things that you talk about, that I've watched you talk about for, over a year and a half now, you have a very specific definition of the things that matter, like that matter to you, the things that are like, the things in a page builder that you want to see. And, you're making blog posts about like section elements and shit and containers, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure I've listened to enough stuff that you've said, you've talked about this, but how do you actually arrive? What's the calculus that you do? Because I think a lot of people get confused with how you arrive at the conclusions that you arrive at. Not like they look at it and like that makes logical sense, but it's almost like I feel like the biggest reaction I get when somebody like reads the things that you do is like, why does this guy care so much about the smallest shit?
Mm-hmm.
Now,
yeah,
that leads to you creating something like Etch that is going to absolutely give a fuck about the smallest detail ever, right?
Yes.
So I have a follow-up question to this, but I want to get this part first because we need to set the scene here because I'm trying to do some like, I don't know if anybody's ever asked you it this way, but I've been dying to ask you that like this for a long time because
go ahead.
So how have you arrived at that? What's the calculus? Like how do you get to that point and why, I guess?
I think it stemmed from the, I mean, I think I know what you're asking. I mean, it stemmed from the idea that I kept hearing over and over and over again, which is you can just do this stuff however you want to do it. Like, just wing it. I mean, just do whatever. Like, and the idea, because I used to talk about any type of standard, any type of like best practice. And then of course, like a lot of detractors are like, "Ooh, who says it's best?" Okay. And it's like, okay, well, one, I can demonstrate it on video for 100 hours. And then I'll be like, we're doing things, and it's any industry. It's like if I go into photography, and because I have a lot of experience in photography, and I was once a very, very beginner, lowly, doesn't know what he's doing with a camera kind of guy. And if you go into a photography forum, well, I mean, people have spent just an incalculable amount of hours doing photography, and they figure out that certain things work way better than other things. And certain ways to set up lighting works better than other ways to set up lighting. And certain camera settings do better in certain situations than others, and yada, yada, yada. And they come up with these best practices. It's not like, and best practice doesn't mean best forever. It just means like the best we know right now, or the best that's currently available, or whatever, until somebody else comes along and does something that's provably better, then we can all agree and we can switch to that, right? So that's what I think it's important to establish those kinds of things in an industry. We go back to language. We go back to, do we all speak the same language? Like that would be very, very helpful. If I go into Elementor and all of the things are called different things from what they're called in Divi, and those are called different things from what they're called in Webflow, and those are called different things from what they're called in Oxygen, that is not empowering to, and by the way, I get, the detractors also talk about like gatekeeping and all this other stuff. The best way to gatekeep an industry is that the language is insanely confusing. There's no standards. There's no best practices. Everybody does everything whatever way that they want. That is a method of gatekeeping, because to an outsider, to somebody coming in, it is chaos. There's nothing to latch onto. There's no clear path to learning or getting better. It's just everybody doing whatever. And then we look at the product of everybody doing whatever. We look at most websites on WDD Live. I do this. I do this. I used to do it weekly. Now I do it by every other week. I'd bring on people, submit websites. We look at them together. 90% of them are awful. They're coded awful. They don't like, it's bad UX, it's bad copy, it's bad design. It's just down the list. And we say the same things over and over and over again. So clearly this idea of just use whatever tool you want, do things however you want, it's not working. We don't have an epidemic of amazing websites. We don't have an epidemic of like amazingly satisfied customers. We have an epidemic of unfinished projects. We have an epidemic of slow websites, poorly designed, especially in the WordPress space, by the way. Just websites that aren't very good. That's what we have the epidemic of. So I align that with, okay, well, everybody on YouTube seems to be just telling everybody, well, just do whatever you want. Use whatever tool makes you feel good, blah, 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 blah. And then we have the outcome over here that is not good, okay, objectively not good. I think it's time where we start to bring some order and sanity to the chaos and say, oh, hold on. Do you remember back in, before the era of page builders and everybody's using page builders, there was actually like standards? Did you know there's actual documentation on how this stuff should be done? There's this fundamentally important concept called classes for this styling workflow thing, that you're actually not supposed to style everything at the ID level. And then it just goes down the list from there. It goes down the list of how do we unify the language that we are all trying to speak? And I've said this before, like the biggest limit on beginners, And again, I'm anti-gatekeeping. I want beginners to be able to come into this space. I just don't want them to be lied to as they enter the door. And the lie that Elementor and Wix and Squarespace, all of these things tell is anybody can do this. Just come on in. We just make it so easy for you. Just use our tool. We make it so easy for you. Anybody can do it. You'll be off to the races in no time, yada, yada, yada. And even if that is true, it traps that individual in a state of understanding the proprietary language of a single tool and not the language of web design, not an actual empowerment mindset. They're not empowered by actual knowledge or skill or anything else. They are only empowered by what that tool allows them to do and all of its limitations. And if you take them outside of that tool, they can't do a single thing. And that is not true empowerment. And that is not taking the gates away. That is a gate in itself. It's actually it's keeping that person contained inside of that proprietary tool. And they have no freedom to leave unless they want to start over, unless they want to start from scratch and actually learn the correct language. And so my view has just been, let's get as many beginners as if they want to come in, let's bring them in, but let's teach them the right things. That's what Page Building 101 was all about. It was like, hey, stop this, hold on. We're not going to do the proprietary thing. I'm going to teach you the language of web design through a page building lens in a course called Page Building 101. And by the end of this course, you are empowered to use any tool that speaks the language of web design. And what so many people came to the conclusion of by doing that course is, well, I can't choose Elementor. I can't choose Divi. I can't, because everything you taught me doesn't work in those tools. It doesn't make sense now. And I see. And so they're free to go to any tool that speaks the language of web design, right? And that's where we want them to go. And that's where Era 4 is going, by the way. And so, yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Definitely does. A lot of good stuff there. I have several questions written down here, and I don't know which direction to go. I would say next is, because you bring up so many good points there of things I want to dive into. I'm gonna start off with this one.
By the way, I will say, when people if they're going to be a user of Etch, they could just ask themselves this question: would you prefer the version of Etch where I told my development team, just do whatever you want, just code it however you want? I mean, just whatever, do whatever, just vibe it, just whatever you floats your boat today or makes you feel good, you do that, right? Or would you prefer the version of Etch where we set development standards and we talked about best practices and the best way to architect this thing for scalability and maintainability, and so that we don't have to go backwards and we don't have an insane amount of technical debt that limits us from putting new features into the tool going forward? Like, which version? And every single user would say, I want the version with standards and best practices and scalability and maintainability. That's the version I hope you guys build. Well, of course, it's obvious. Okay, so the people and this was my biggest thing, it never felt honest to me. When YouTubers got on and were like, just use whatever tool you want, do things however you want, whatever, it doesn't matter. Don't listen to that guy. He's just opinionated. There's no such thing as best practices, yada, yada, yada. It felt so dishonest to me, because they would never choose that from a provider that they hired. If they hired somebody, they would not want to hire somebody that acts like that. They would want to hire somebody that cares about standards and best practices and scalability and maintainability. That's who they would hire. So it's completely dishonest to get on YouTube and tell people the exact opposite, in my opinion.
Maybe a difficult question here, but I'm wondering, from a general perspective and also more so your product perspective, how large do you think, or have you estimated, the audience for Etch is?
It's huge. It's huge because it's huge if you shift the mindset. Because right now, if you're going to lie to people, you have the biggest audience. If you're just going to lie to people and be like, well, we're just building the easiest tool for everybody. Everybody can come and use it, yada, yada, yada. Like, obviously that's the biggest size audience. So we're not trying to reach everybody. We're trying to reach everybody that wants to do work in this industry, whether that's a hobbyist or whether it's an agency or a freelancer or whatever. That's a whole lot of people. And I don't care about the number because it's enough. So whatever the number is, it's enough. And all I care about are the details and actually serving those people versus like the total market size.
Okay. Another question related to that then is, last time I took a look at Etch was before my trip. When we kind of had our chat and looked at kind of the inputs and all that sort of stuff, all the cool stuff that you have going on. Obviously, as you mentioned, the UI is not done. Functionality before UI and all that, and the UX and everything like that. So definitely noted. However, for the sake of a comparison, and maybe something people are familiar with, like a Bricks or an Oxygen or what have you, all of those tools have what I would classify as like a similar feel inside them to some degree. They don't look the same, but the concept is the same. A page builder is like a page builder. It's going to have some level of element panel, a structure panel. It's going to have a canvas. You're going to put shit on it. It's going to go like that. Yeah. I know what Etch looks like now, but my question is for Etch and broader for like potentially Era 4 tools, now that we're kind of like getting into this kind of new frontier, it's a two-parter. How is Etch going to look at that when it's done? I don't mean you don't need to tell me colors and shit like that. I'm saying like, how is it going to feel and look? Because my follow-up to that is another, I feel like a quick snapback that people would have is you have a spectrum of like a Wix where you just drag and drop random shit. I know they have Studio now or whatever, but like the barest bone thing that you could think of as far as like a builder. And then you have literally VS Code basically on the other end. So the concept, and maybe this is faulty, I'd love to hear your thoughts. The more that you go towards like a VS Code, the more code that you are able to see, the more things you're able to do like that. At what point does somebody just go, why am I even using something like Etch or something that's getting closer to that? Why don't I just go the other 10% and just do everything kind of myself? Like, where is that happy medium? And is that something you're trying to create with Etch where it's visual enough, but at the same time you have access to everything you need? And is that the antithesis of what an Era 4 builder is, would you say? Because that's definitely a big thing that I would hear, and I think you're going to continue to hear.
Yeah, it's a good question. So to be clear, Etch's interface is modular. So you can arrange it however you want to arrange it. You can decide what you want to see and what you don't want to see. If you are a beginner, intermediate, and you're learning, but you are intimidated by code and you want the tool to aid you, assist you in writing the code, which means you want to click elements, click a section, click a heading, click an image, click a whatever, and add them to the page, it will do that for you. If you want to fill out CSS inputs and because you want it to write the CSS for you, it will do that for you. You can hide the HTML so you don't see it. You can hide the CSS so that you never see it. You can use Etch without ever looking at code or touching code, just like you could do in another page builder. The difference is you can also do completely the opposite. You could write all of the code by hand. You could write all of the CSS by hand, which you cannot do in current page builders. You cannot do that, right? I could copy HTML from a done HTML from an outside page and paste it into Etch, and it will render. And then I could work with it. And so you cannot do that. So it has all of the benefits of a visual tool. By the way, if we just use an example of like, okay, I want to add a section and a heading and a text and a button and an image and blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, when I go click, 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 that's probably faster than me writing out whatever HTML is required to make those things happen, right? Even if I'm using Emmet or something like that, which Emmet is a whole nother language that you have to learn. It's another barrier, yada, yada, yada. I think a lot of people would argue it's just easier and more joyful to go click, 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 and those elements are on the page. That is a benefit. That is a benefit to why wouldn't we use VS Code? Because I can't do that in VS Code. I can't do visual things in VS Code. When it's time to do a loop, when it's time to do logic, when it's time to create components, now you're hopping into a completely different territory in VS Code, right? Now it's a whole nother language. Well, in Etch, I can just right click. And so I can say create component and now magic. Oh, it's a component. Like to do that in VS Code, it would take a long time, right? It doesn't take any time at all in Etch. So we're combining you get all of the benefits of a visual environment, like a page builder, with zero of the downsides. That's been the problem with all the existing tools, because they ask the wrong question. When you say, how do we make it easy for beginners? You come to conclusions like don't have access to the code. They don't need it. Don't even worry about clean code output. They don't need it. They don't care. They don't even know what a DOM is. They're never going to check it. Don't worry about CSS, right? They're not going to write CSS. They don't know CSS. Just give them all the inputs. If they have to write CSS as an afterthought, just give them a little tiny, see, we go down this whole path of like, these decisions are awful. So when an actual professional comes in, they're like, what is going on here? This is ridiculous. This is a toy. I would never use this, right? But you go into Etch, you can do all the things like a professional is going to be like, oh, I feel right at home here. Okay, this speaks my language. It lets me do all the things I want to do. It has no limitations. But a beginner can also be like, oh, I don't want to see that advanced stuff. I just want to do my stuff the visual way. I just want to click a bunch of stuff and fill out a bunch of input. They can do that too. So everybody can be happy, right? And the interface is modular. So you're not locked into like one kind of method of doing things.
Gotcha. Okay. That all makes sense. I mean, I have to ask this question. Has that never existed?
No. Well, it exists outside of WordPress, I guess. but not really. Because it's just, there's so many things that, and this is why people like begged me to build a page builder in the first place, which I said no to for 2 straight years. I said, no, we're not going to do it. But I would always talk about like the problems, the limitations, the lack of innovation, and like what people who do this stuff day in and day out, like to a high level, actually care about. And it's a culmination of, it's not one thing. It's a culmination of hundreds of little details that just, the pieces were never put together. Like now we're finally putting them together, and it creates an entirely different experience.
Interesting. Because, I mean, like to me, if it seemed like you the way you explain it makes total sense. It's basically an IDE meets like a complete visual builder, and you just don't need anything else. But the one thing I'm also getting, and maybe this is something that you're already thinking about, is the way that you're describing this sounds like it's way larger than WordPress, and WordPress is just the first stop. Because if you could create a situation where you basically have an IDE, full IDE, like in your building environment, and you could also visually build the thing, then at what point couldn't you just do something else? Now, I guess Gutenberg is playing a role there to some degree, because you're authoring blocks over there, and that's where it is. But like, I feel like there's just so much more opportunity there for, again, not just Etch, but like other tools to do a similar methodology.
It's not, Etch does not, it leverages WordPress. Does it have to be connected to WordPress? No, it can be picked up and it could be put down over here on this other CMS. And it could empower developers using that other CMS in the exact way that it empowers developers on WordPress. So yeah, the future has a lot of options and a lot of pathways. We are dedicated to WordPress because all of our products are in WordPress. We're in WordPress. We're WordPress users. We love WordPress. We want to continue moving WordPress forward. I mean, this is kind of like if I was automatic, if I was making the decisions and we were making a native development environment for WordPress, again, with the context that this is WordPress.org we are talking about. This is not WordPress.com situation. Everybody looked at me fucking sideways when I was on Jamie Marsland's live. Was it live? I don't know. I don't know what it was. He was interviewing me 2 years ago or something. You can go watch the video. And we were talking about the distinction between WordPress.org and WordPress.com and the confusion that everybody has. And we were also talking about that in the context of Gutenberg and its severely dumbed down, simplified interface. And this has never made sense to me that you would do that on WordPress.org. It made sense to me that you would do that on WordPress.com. If you want to compete with Wix or Squarespace or whatever, WordPress.com is the place that people who don't know what they're doing go to create WordPress sites. People that know what they're doing go to WordPress.org, okay? In other words, you can't take, like, they were like, well, anybody should be able to do this, and Gutenberg is for everybody and anybody, and we had to make it super simple because your grandma has to be able to do it, but my grandma is not a WordPress.org user and never will be, okay? The hurdles that you have to jump to get into a WordPress.org install, she would never be able to clear those hurdles to get to the stupid dumbed down interface you created for her to make it easy. It would that is such the most ridiculous disconnect in the history of software, probably. And so if you tasked Kevin, you were like, hey, okay, a .org native interface for doing our work, what would it look like? That would probably look like Etch. Like this is the concept. You have to unify everything. You have to modernize everything. You have to speak the language of web design. You have to empower both beginners and developers, assuming that the beginners want to learn. Again, that they're not just coming in for a fly-by-night, make a website exist kind of deal, right? That they actually want to do things the right way. So I think that that's why I think Etch it should be the go-to platform. It's like when you go into WordPress.org to do your work, the consensus is you use Etch. Why would you use anything different? Like the way that it empowers you to get your work done is second to none. And that's what people are going to start to see. And that's the conclusion that I think that they're going to come to. And it just should be what the native environment for WordPress should have been in the first place.
Okay, got one more question. Then if Rob is ready, we can go to him. If he's we see him in the green room area. But here's one thing that I've thought about very recently. When you did the presentation, you're going to do the other one, obviously, and kind of show the stuff, right? But when you did the presentation with the Etch specifically, it was like 10 plugins, plugin categories, let's say, that you wouldn't need anymore, right?
Yeah.
At what point does this become just kind of an all-in-one solution that I'm not saying it's its own CMS potentially, because you're not dealing with all the CMS portion of it, but like, is that like, does it end somewhere? Do you have like right now in your mind, like a hard stop of where you're not going to like cross into the territories of like these types of areas?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what's that look like?
The easiest one is what is proprietary WordPress and what is not proprietary WordPress. What is core WordPress and what is not core WordPress? I think there's a lot of misunderstanding, right? When we say that we are going to allow you to create custom post types and custom fields, I think a lot of people imagine a proprietary build for that or something like, oh, okay, Etch is going to manage that. Like WordPress already does that, but they don't have a UI for it, but Etch is going to do it. It's going to do it in its own way or whatever. No, that's not what we're doing. It's not what we're doing. When you register a custom post type in Etch, it is registered using core WordPress. When you register custom fields, it is registered using core WordPress. This architecture already exists. WordPress Automatic just did not provide a UI for it. Plain and simple. So all we're doing is doing essentially what ACF does. We provide the UI, we provide the logic for the custom fields, like depending on how you're assigning them and when you want one to display and yada, yada, yada. Okay. All of that is obviously very beneficial, but we're not building a custom post types architecture or custom fields architecture or anything like that. Media management. You can manage media in Etch, right? You will be able to manage media in Etch in a much more modern way. Nobody likes the media library in WordPress. It's archaic. It's very limited. You can't organize things properly. You can't loop through things properly. I mean, there's so many limitations, right? Etch will remove all of those limitations. But when you manage media in Etch, it's essentially going into the WordPress media library, okay? It's just a different interface, and there's additional features attached to it when you do that. But we're not completely re-architecting media management. So we are not like, and that's the extent of it, right? There's a lot of things that we, in terms of the builder, that we architected from scratch. But these other things where we're talking about unifying a development environment, where the idea is, if I am going down building a team page and I get to the part where I need my team grid. All right, here's my team. I need to display my team. By the way, there are so many people that are not on point with this. Like they can't even conceptualize this because of the way that they build sites like hyperstatically. Okay. And I actually had this argument the other day on Twitter or something with a developer who was telling me never use custom fields or never use custom post types. I was like, what? Come again? Like he was like, you just make it all pages. I'm like, no, you can't. And this is where we talk about the best practices thing where people are like, well, who are you to say? Well, I can get on video and show you 20 reasons why not to do it with pages. Like, where is your video showing 20 reasons to not do it with? They don't have one. It doesn't exist. This is it's so frustrating that people can just be like, no, don't do that, but they never provide any evidence or example or demonstration of why their opinion is better. So that's insanely frustrating. So
I know.
if I get to the team grid and I'm trying to get my team to display, okay, I need to create a custom post type for my team. I don't care what anybody else says. I need to create a custom post type for my team. This is how you manage content in a content management system. The idea that you would put team members as pages is fucking 2005 wants their development practices back, okay? You would create a custom post type. The idea that I would stop everything that I'm doing and leave the builder and go install another plugin called ACF, and then go into that area in ACF and register the custom post type. Or I don't care, go to functions.php and do whatever. Like, it's just a different area that I was not currently doing my work in. And then when I'm done over there, by the way, I have to go to a different area for custom fields, okay? And then make sure that those two things are assigned to each other. And then I got to go back into the builder where I already had been. I was already there doing work. Why didn't I just keep doing the work there? Like, and once people connect the dots on this and they experience it and they realize, oh my God, I didn't have to leave to do that. Like, I just saved 15 minutes of time, and I'm going to continue to save giant chunks of time to this. When it's time to manage media, stop what we're doing. I got to go over here and I got to organize my media in this different place. I call these magic areas. Well, why couldn't we do it there? Well, I mean, that's magic workflow. You can't just do that right there. You got to do it over here. That never made sense to me. So we were just like, why don't we fix that? Why don't we stop pretending that this is some magic that has to happen somewhere else? It can all happen right here. And that's unifying the workflow, right? And when you unify the workflow, it, first of all, takes the compartmentalization that your brain has to do. Because you got to, oh, okay, I'm doing this over here. I'm doing this over here. I'm doing this. You're keeping track of all of this shit. It's fucking draining. It's draining. It's wildly inefficient. And when you get rid of all of that, it feels, this is why it's joyful again to actually build websites, because you don't have to constantly stop and you don't have to constantly run into these roadblocks and issues and headaches and nightmares. And it's just nice. And this is just how it should be. Okay. That's the conclusion that people are going to come to.
I've heard you talk about that for a while. The unified, obviously that type of thing. I can't even, it makes logical sense. I cannot conceptually and visually wrap my mind around how that is going to look, but I have faith that you guys are going to figure it out. So I'm looking forward to see how I'm looking forward to that. Should we bring Rob in here? I can pull him on the stage. See how this works here. Rob, can you hear us? I think you can talk to, we're not gonna be able to see on the screen without the camera, which is totally fine, but can you hear us?
I can hear you. I've been hearing you the whole time. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right.
For jumping on.
So I have a lot of things to speak to here. And as I said, what Kevin was just talking about, the last 2 points were brilliant. Now he's talking about this from his point of view as the developer of the software. I want to speak to how this is being received from my end. As a former developer, I don't even know if I can still call myself a developer. It's more like a developer manager. I know what has to be done and can be done and the possibilities, but my tweak right now is not knowing how to put it in place exactly with current technology. So I think that I actually am an ideal customer avatar for you, Kevin, based on what I'm seeing in the inner circle and all these old guys coming back, and they're all saying how you have now reinvigorated them into getting back into this, and same as me. So my beginning at this was writing in Notepad in the 90s. Before that, I learned Apple Basic in the 80s. Okay. I did programming. I typed in Notepad to build websites in the 90s. Then I got some skills in active service pages, ASP, Microsoft, running on IIS. I ended up working at a startup in 2000. We used to draw out on paper the database design. Then we would write the code, or I would write the code to create the database create the database that I needed. I would write the ASP to do exactly what I needed to do. I had full control. I knew exactly what I was doing in ASP, 100%. Then I started getting a little older, getting into my 30s. Head and tail became far more interesting. I wanted to do things easy. WordPress was coming around, and I'm like, well, why would I get into WordPress? Because, Blogger exists, and I'm running ASP sites. So then I combined an ASP website with a Blogger backend. Then WordPress came around, like I said. Then it changed to PHP. Then it became kind of easier because themes were there. Like, okay, this is far more quicker. And again, my life kind of moved on. But then while building WordPress websites, not understanding PHP perfectly, like I can look at it and know what it's doing and I can tweak it, but I can't write it. So it became very frustrating that what I wanted my websites to do, I didn't know how to make it work because it was PHP. Then I also didn't know how, like the dominoes of if I did something, I'm doing this wrong and I'm setting myself up for failure down the pipe. Okay, so then another 10 years goes by. I run into Kevin, page building 101, and I'm like, oh my God, this can be done. I can literally do what I want to do using bricks. I'm like, okay. So 2024 was professional development for me. I went back to school essentially, and I'm still in school. I thought CSS was done in 2003. I thought it had maxed out and there was nothing else to learn. I was wrong. I got to wrap my head around CSS. Okay. Now Etch is coming into the picture. Oh, pardon me, before that, my epiphany in 2024 was that when I first discounted custom post types, because it was PHP and programming, I'm like, okay, I kind of get it, but I don't know how to do it. When I realized in 2024 that ACF was essentially a GUI to create custom databases, I woke up. I'm like, okay, we're getting somewhere. Bricks can do what I need it to do, and I can create what I need there. However, there's still some things like PHP. Where am I actually going to work this in? How am I putting the loops into bricks? Where's the right place to do this if I want to do this custom? Now with Etch, I'm looking at Etch 0.10, I believe it was the one I saw. And I'm looking at this thinking, I can custom code, I can custom CSS, I can create my tables that I need right in this screen where I need it to do it. What I need to have happen, I can actually make happen right here, either hard coding it or clicking a button and using a frame. Like this speeds everything up and gets me back into doing what I need to do. And I'm seriously looking forward to where this is going to go. And like I said, my demographic, having 30 years ago being a programmer, getting away from it, and now coming back, there's a lot of us.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think what a big part of that is, and I think a lot of people identify with this when they do use tools that are not really built for scalability and maintainability. It's not really just getting your work done, getting from point A to point B, like you mentioned, like, okay, it empowers me to do this, 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 and this. But really, it's the maintainability side of it that nobody likes going back to a project. And now it's time to iterate. Now it's time to make changes. Now it's time to even do major work on this thing because it's been sitting for a year. It's been sitting for a year and a half or whatever. You know, always, especially in this modern era, websites are like living, breathing things. They're not just brochures that we just build and then it sits there for 3 years. Like we're doing a lot of stuff with it, and we're creating marketing landing pages. And now a new PPC campaign is coming out. A new Facebook campaign is coming out. We're running a sale over here. We got to have, it's constantly moving. It's constantly being iterated on and worked on. And if you don't have maintainability practices in place, you don't have a dynamic website, you're not properly looping things, you don't have actual components, you're not using classes, it is an absolute nightmare. It is not fun. Our work is so absurdly tedious when you build like that. And that's what all of these other tools, not just like they ask you to do it. They add like they just, and Bricks is guilty of this as well, for as good as Bricks is, if you open a new page in Bricks and you add something to it and you're like, I want to start styling that. What does Bricks do? Bricks defaults to styling that at the ID level. It generates an ID and it assigns those styles to it. Every other page builder does exactly the same thing. Now, Breakdance or whatever will be like, oh, well, we use classes. We don't use ID. Okay, you generated a random class and you assign the styles to that. It's a unique class. It might as well be an ID. It has a little less specificity, but you're still styling at the ID level effectively. That's like that fundamental thing of like, you're encouraged to just start the wrong way. It's crazy. And so, we have an epidemic of sites that are not scalable, are not maintainable. And then the developers are like, man, this is just not fun. It's not profitable. Like it's not a good situation. And so, like you said, when all of these practices can actually exist and they can be put in place very easily. And then we can actually do really great work, and we can make that work maintainable and scalable and iterable. Now we're having fun. Like, now we're actually empowered to do, because we could only do this before in VS Code land and learning all these different languages and putting them all together and having this completely disconnected kind of workflow experience where nothing was unified. We can abandon all that now. We can come into one unified visual development environment, still check all of those boxes, and now have more fun than ever, because it's a way better experience to do this in a visual environment than it is to do in VS Code. It's the best of everything with none of the downsides.
Well, having fun, 100%. Like I've woke up again. This is really, really good. The problem I'm experiencing is there's so much interesting things to do and play with. Like API, I'm watching Brendan do API stuff is absolutely brilliant. And I just left him a message a couple of days ago and said that I don't have time to play with API, even though I know what it can do. I just don't have the time to do it for free. I just don't. I'm working.
Yeah.
Got bills to pay. But I told him that by watching him play with it and show the possibilities of what it can do, led me to thinking of solutions that I can use this in. And I pitched this to a client for a grant that they're going to get for 10 grand. And I said, we can do this. And they said, oh, this is brilliant. And I said to Brendan, if I hadn't seen him doing this, I wouldn't have known it was possible to pitch it as the solution. And I know I can do it. Now I'm going to get paid to do it. So brilliant. I'll let you go with that.
Yeah. Appreciate it, Rob.
Appreciate it, Rob. Thank you. Yeah. Dude, there's a lot to cover. Honestly, I don't know if this is something you have to be thinking about this, Kevin, but like it kind of spills over with what Rob was talking about there. Is there's so much shit happening. Like I wasn't here 5 years ago or whatever, but like I feel like this is just going so much faster. And how are you guys, internally at Etch, or just you and you personally in general? I was talking about AI earlier. AI can do a lot of this stuff. Now I know can't do it perfectly, but there's if you stay up on it, like it's doing some crazy shit. So I don't know what your personal experience has been, but like, where do you honestly see this all moving in like a 5-year time period, just from what you've seen, what you know, and what you feel? And how is that going to affect anything? I'm assuming you would evolve appropriately, but like what do you think's going to happen, or like what are you feeling?
No, you're right. Well, I can pretty much boldly claim that if in the era of AI, if you are interested in using AI to its fullest capacity, no professional, nobody, no agency, no freelancer would use in their right mind would use a tool where their only pathway to using AI is to prompt, and then settle. That's what you have to do with AI. You have to prompt, settle. If you cannot touch the code, because it's going to spit results back at you, and it's not going to be perfect. And if you have client requirements, or you have a Figma file, or you have a something where things are kind of specific, you are probably not going to arrive at the exact destination you want to arrive at. You're going to prompt incessantly, and then you are going to settle, unless you can have access to the code. Because if you have access to the code, what an actual professional does using AI right now is they get the code that is spit back to them, which you cannot see in any other environment in WordPress. In any other visual environment, you cannot see the code. So you have to just accept what the AI will spit back. If these tools ever get to the point where they can empower it to spit back stuff that's actually relevant, right? In their environment. So in Etch is the only environment where, one, you can prompt it once, and what it gives back to you can just be altered and fixed. Okay, it would be very much like how AI is used in Cursor, right? And now imagine you go into an Elementor or a Divi or a wherever where you cannot access the code and you're prompting AI to do things. Nobody in their right mind would use those tools with AI because they can't control the output of what's fed back to them. All they can do is reprompt and reprompt and reprompt. Where in Etch, you could just take the code and manipulate it to make it to perfect. That's exactly how, like, thank you for giving me the starting point. Now I will finish it up. That's what an actual professional does. They don't just sit there going, oh God, please. They get to it. Like, they're just begging the tool, like more prompts, more, and then you're out of fucking tokens. What, this is ridiculous. This is, Mark, this is not going to work. This is not going to work, Mark. Okay. You have to be able to touch the code that is fed back to you. And the only place people can do that is in Etch. So it's going to be fantastic for people who want to leverage that.
Okay, so you're saying at some point then you're going to be in V1 basically, and prior visual building environment that you could manually code and you could basically drag and drop effectively, like visual builder as we're accustomed to, as well as like literally build the whole website, manually code it if you wanted to. You have full access to all that.
Yeah.
The next version, I'm not talking versions specifically of the software or whatever, but in your mind, the next evolution of that is you put that on hyperdrive and you're able to now have one environment where you could prompt something and Etch, or another Era 4 builder or whatever, like Etch could create that, do what it needs to do. It's like almost like an AI assistant, so to speak, where it's going to write the code, and obviously the code and the visual blocks and everything like that are going to match, and it's going to match in Gutenberg and everything. So it creates that via AI, and then you can almost like spin up your own, basically like frames, I guess, in a way, or like any sort of like layout or anything like that. And then you get it from there, and then you can go and move ahead, but you still have full access to the code. You see everything that it did, and it's all still in the same environment. So it's very integrated in that form.
Yeah, there's no, wherever AI goes, Etch can go with it, because I think you're always going to, regardless of how good it gets, like you're always going to need to touch the code for some reason or another. Or you would have to spend just an endless amount of time teaching it and setting up standards and all of this other stuff for it to work by, which probably a lot of people don't want to bother doing. It's just way better when you can just touch the stuff it gives back to you versus just look at the stuff. Like it's like through a looking glass, right? You're like, I wish I could touch that. I wish I could just fix that thing right there. But no, I got to reprompt it. I got to see if it, and you're just playing this prompt game constantly. Why? Well, these other builders are going to be forced to do it that way because, again, they made, and our decisions continue to pay off. The closer you stay to the spec, the better off you are. The closer you stay to the code, the better off you are. The more access you give, the better off you are. The more standards you follow, and the more consistent you are with language, the better off you are. It wasn't our plan to be more compatible with AI than these other builders. It just naturally happened because we didn't take away things that the other builders decided should be taken away from people, right? And so it just kind of, that's just, the reality is the reality. And that's why I said the faulty premise that ruins page builders is the idea that professionals would never use these tools, and we should just dumb them down as much as possible. We should make it as easy for beginners. Well, when you ask that question, how do we do that? You get a bunch of shitty answers. And the result is a very bad experience for anybody who wants to do actual work.
Gotcha. Well, you just said the magic word, so let's talk about the professional topic that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Not too long ago, I want to say maybe a week or two ago, I saw in the admin bar, somebody asked about like, if you use Canva, like, are you a professional? And they said, whatever. Now, my take on this is probably slightly different than yours. And I feel like I kind of know where yours is at. I think like most things though, we have maybe a semantic issue to some degree. Like it's basically, again, like we all have to agree what words mean. You know what I mean? I think there's a way for us to all describe this, but like ultimately, forget the Canva example where we can use it, whatever. But the idea is, you were talking about it earlier, is a professional somebody that just takes like money from people effectively, like just cashes checks and does whatever? Or is a professional somebody that actually cares more about the product or, you know, like the actual fundamentals and things like that in the web space? I have definitely said that my perspective has shifted a little bit on this to some degree, but again, I think it's mostly in language rather than in, you know, I don't know, belief system, I guess. But like high level, I mean, what do you think on this?
So let's go. I want to define professional here, because the actual definition, so professional, of relating to, engage in, or suitable for a profession. Okay, that's number one that I was fed back. Conforming to the standards of a profession. Okay. Engaging in a given activity as a source of livelihood or as a career. And so this is where, okay, performed by persons receiving pay. And this is where the you are correct that it's a semantic question, but I think we can all probably come to an objective agreement that there is a specific understanding of the word professional that makes it relevant. And the idea that it's just anybody who gets paid to do something as a professional is a completely unhelpful description of professional. So we can take any of these definitions, like engaging in this would be the closest to that argument that people make. Engaging in a given activity as a source of livelihood or as a career. The idea that you are going to make something a career, like a standard career would be, okay, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm going to have a standard career, which means I am going to go to an employer and I am going to try to get a job there. And if I get a job there, I am being paid to do work. And so am I a professional or am I not a professional? Well, the work would dictate, the company that you work for most likely is going to what? Assess your ability and skill at doing the thing they are paying you to do. And if you can't do it to a certain degree of quality, they will fire you. You will no longer be making the money. So you can't say, well, I mean, I was getting paid, therefore I was a professional. But why did you get fired? Why are you no longer getting paid, right? Because the idea of a professional, it's the same thing if my car needs to be fixed, okay? So I can drive around and I can find somebody on the side of the road and I can be like, can you fix my car? I'll give you $500 to fix my car. Would you fix my car? You'll get somebody to say yes. Does that make that person a professional? The word professional comes with a distinct understanding that the person knows what they're doing. Like they have some certain level of skill. They align to a certain degree with some semblance of standards. If you told your friend or your spouse or whatever, well, I got the car fixed. Well, did you hire a professional? I mean, yeah. Like like imagine that scenario where I just found a rando who would accept $500. I don't know what he did. I don't know. Maybe he slapped some duct tape under that bitch. Like, I don't know what he did. Okay. But I go home and I tell my wife, I'm like, I got the car fixed. And she's like, oh, who did it? And I'm like, well, Joe. And is Joe a professional? Yeah. And that's just the end of our discussion. Like, I'm not going to tell her. Well, I met Joe on the side of the road. I don't know much about him, but he did take my $500. So, I mean, technically, right? He's a professional. I guess I would say nobody would do that. This is once again an example of where people will try to make an argument, but then never in real life would they actually follow through with the definition that they're giving in their line of argumentation. If you claim to be a professional, what you are claiming is that you have a certain degree of skill and expertise. And by the way, when people are hiring you, they hire based on that expectation. Okay. When I say I need a professional plumber, that means I don't need a rando who's going to agree to fix my plumbing. I need somebody who knows what they're doing around here. That is what people are communicating when they say professional. So the idea that people would come into web design and, well, I mean, there's not a big barrier to entry. Do you own a laptop? Do you know what WordPress.org is? Even WordPress.com will work. Do you know what Wix is? Do you know what Squarespace? Any of these things will work. The minute somebody pays you some money to do something, you can consider yourself to be a professional. I think that's a kind of an absurd definition.
So What would you say then that the level is? That's question one.
Yeah.
And then also question two is, by that logic, what tools, it almost sounds like some tools should not exist.
Okay, so the question of does a professional use Canva is a really, it's like a really good example. The answer is a professional can use Canva. So if a professional who knows what they're doing and they have a high degree of skill and ability, if they decide to use Canva for whatever purpose, does that revoke their professional status? Of course not. Just like a photographer who's a professional photographer, a Sports Illustrated photographer could come in and take photos with an iPhone. Does that make them not a professional photographer? No, they are a professional photographer who chose to use an iPhone. Does that mean the iPhone is a professional photography tool? No, it wasn't designed for that purpose. It's not made for that purpose. It doesn't have the capabilities of that purpose, okay? Depending on most projects' requirements. It's inarguably, it's used widespread by non-professionals to take photos. It's not a professional tool. Is Canva a professional tool? No, it's not. And you can get all up in your feelings about it. It's not. A professional can use it, but it's not a professional tool, right? It's not designed for professionals. The premise wasn't for professionals, wasn't designed for professional work. Again, a professional can use it if they so choose, but it's not a professional tool. So that is the main distinction that I think people have to understand.
Okay. So then it's not necessarily about the tools, or I mean, like a tool could be professional or it's not professional based on how it was designed. So that's like the first thing. So you would say like Wix, for instance, is not a professional tool, as an example.
Wix is objectively not a professional tool because they had to create Wix Studio, which they claim is their professional version of Wix. So that tells you right away that the original version of Wix was not designed for professionals. But you can see, okay, so if you have to have a specific level of expertise, okay, like if I walked into a professional mechanic, like I walked into their garage or whatever, and I look around and I open the toolbox and all I see is fucking duct tape and bubble gum. It raises some questions, doesn't it? Like, and they're like, well, trust me, that's a professional. Like, no, and in that case, you actually really can't get the job done with those tools, right? So there's some middle ground, okay? But if you open a drawer and like if a person's like, I'm a professional web designer, and then you open up and they're using Wix, okay? It raises some questions, and that we at least have to ask them a few more questions about what they're planning on doing with this tool, right? And how they're planning on doing with it, because we know that the tools, we know duct tape and bubble gum is not adequate to do a mechanic's job. They need specialized tools to do their job, right? It's the same thing with a surgeon or like anybody, a photographer. Photographer walks in, you hire. Imagine you're Nike. And you're like, dude, we gotta hire a professional, and your marketing intern or whatever, she hires someone. This dude rolls in with just the iPhone in his back pocket. He has no lights, no cameras, no gear, nothing. He just rolls in with an iPhone. You're gonna raise some eyebrows, right? Some red flags. Wait, do you really know what he's doing? That's what people in web design do. They roll in with, and then you go, that's not a professional tool. And now they're all up in their field. Oh, it could be a professional. It was this whole thing. It's like, I mean, come on, really look at it. Like you can't do class. You can't do loops. You can't do so many things that you need to be able to do. It's not an adequate tool. I don't know why they pretend like this is a subjective discussion. It's all feelings based. I don't feel good when you say that. So I'm going to disagree with it. That's not reality.
Okay. So professional, we'll say a true professional would at least know the difference between professional and non-professional tools.
Yes.
They would most likely, in most cases, be using professional tooling rather than, and if they weren't, they would know why, right? Like maybe you use Canva on occasion, but it's only for certain things that you don't deem to be professional enough or like past a certain thing or whatever. What do we call if we're going to do this, what do we call people that aren't professionals? We just call them amateurs, or is there a better word? Or
Sure. Well, it depends. I mean, you could be, are you an aspiring professional, right? And I think to me, an amateur is somebody who wants to remain non-paid, right? So like a hobbyist, like I'm not going to try. I study photography. I do photography. I love photography. I buy all the fancy equipment. I do all the things. I don't want to be paid as a photographer. Like, I am an amateur photographer. I don't care to be paid, right? I'm doing all the things maybe like to the level of a professional would be doing them. But again, I don't want it to be my profession. That's the root word. Like, I don't want it to be my profession. So it's like an amateur athlete, right? It's like a college athlete that doesn't care to go, like, I'm an amateur athlete. What do you want me to tell you? It's not bad. I don't know. Maybe some people look at that as like a bad label. It's just a label. It's just facts. It just is what it is. So yeah, I think you would call them an amateur unless let's say their skills do not meet the requirement to be a professional, but they want to be a professional. Well, they're an aspiring professional. They aspire to be a professional. And by the way, there's a lot of people who aspire to be a professional that are currently being paid. Does not make them a professional just because they're paid. They don't have the other requirements to meet the definition of a professional. And I don't think again, it's not a knock on it. It just is what it is. When you go to try to be a lawyer, there's a fucking bar exam and they go, you didn't pass it. You are an aspiring lawyer. Okay. You're not a lawyer. All right. And it's just there's a clear cutoff line. And I think that's quite a good example. We don't have that in web design, but it still, in reality, does exist.
Gotcha. Okay. I have written down here, anyone can make a website. I know that's a fiery question.
Anyone can make a website. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that one?
That's a no.
That's a no.
Make a website. No.
Just like that? Well, hang on though. Just like that, or do you have to qualify it?
No, you have to qualify it. The premise of all of these page builders is if we dumb it down enough, if we make it easy enough, anybody will be able to do it. And the reality, after how long have we been going down this road? So 2011 was Elementor came out, right? And the Wix has been around for about the same amount of time, where we're 14 years down this pathway of anybody. If we just dumb it down enough, anybody will be able to do it. And what is the reality for the vast majority of lay people users of these tools? The reality is the best they can muster is they can install a template that is pre-made for them. They can swap some content. They can swap some colors. They maybe can drag a few things around. Not a single one of those people, without going through a significant learning curve, can start with a blank page and build a website. I would like, it would take them it would be very entertaining to watch, but they would not be able to do it without going through a significant learning curve, or just at the end of it, it would just be dog shit. That's what it would end up being, right? So the premise that everybody was trying to arrive at, like, oh, we can do it if we just make it dumber, if we just make it simpler, if we did, they will be able. No, they will not. This is, and by the way, you just spoke about how fast this industry moves. It's moving at light speed. They can't keep up. We can barely keep up. Of course, they can't keep up. They don't know
for sure,
right?
I've definitely changed my tune on initially when we saw like AI like booming with website stuff. I don't really think the thing to worry about is clients building websites with AI. Like, some people are going to try that, and at some point maybe it'll be good enough at some point for it to be like passable for people. Specifically though, the question of like anyone can make a website. I mean, again, I feel like we get into a little bit of a semantic here, but like the way you answered that is no, because your definition of building a website is building a good website, a professional website. That's what it sounds like.
I say a website of consequence. I mean, if you want to just slap some shit on a page and call it a day and say you won, like you checked the box, like that's, I mean, anybody can do that, right? A website of consequence that meets real goals for like a business, or like, again, my mom's Bunko Club website is not really a website of consequence. It's just, okay, can she get, but again, my mom is not going to start from scratch. She's going to install a template the best she can do. She's not even going to do that, but I think she can, I don't, my mom might not be able to log in. Okay. Let's just put it there. But like, seriously, if you take people who are, I mean, you could take my wife who's like moderately tech inclined and put them in front of Wix or I would love to see it. I would love to see it. The best they can do, click, install a theme, maybe, change some colors, some content around. And if is that meeting your definition of like making a website, Mark, or are we talking about like, give them a blank slate, can they make a website of consequence?
I mean, I think on the surface, making a website would be they don't have a website and now they have a website that somebody could go to. Now, I agree when you throw the word of consequence on there.
But if I paid somebody to do that, I didn't make it. They made it. Like, what does it mean for me to make a website? Because somebody else did, if somebody else did 99% of the work and I just changed what the headline says, did I make a website? Just because I clicked a few buttons on a platform? Like, no, somebody else made the website. I launched the website. How about that? I can give myself credit for launching the website. What part of it did I make?
I mean, again, that's a good semantic difference there. I would say, yeah, launching is probably more accurate than actually creating stuff, just changing.
My point is that the premise was these tools, the promise of the tools was if we make it simple enough, they will be able to do it. And they still can't do it. They still can't even get close to doing it. All they can do is install template files and change simple things around. That's all they can do. It didn't work. The premise failed. It didn't work.
Yeah. I mean, I think we are pretty early. I've been trying to rack my brain and think about other examples of things that we've seen before because we're so hyper fixated on this and this moves really fast, but it's also really young comparatively to all the other examples that we could have. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, horses to cars and all this other shit that like has evolved over time, so to speak. Again, modes of transportation, XYZ, whatever. So, yeah, I don't have the answers because I don't have a crystal ball, but,
by the way, I want to add something because you asked about the levels of professionalism, like, because there could be a cutoff, like a bar exam where it's like, you are now a lawyer, but even in lawyers, there's like really, really good lawyers. And then there's just like public defenders, and you're fucking going to prison because they have good representation. Like there's bad lawyers, right? There's, and there's good and bad in every single industry. So how do you parse that out? That is parsed out or really should be parsed out in a lot of ways by price. Like when people in Inner Circle ask me like, Kevin, I don't feel like I came up on Elementor, I came up on Divi. I'm still on the page building 101 education train. Like I'm trying my best to absorb all this stuff and put it into practice. And I want to build better sites. But now I almost feel like when I ask people for money, I'm like, should I even be? And I'm like, yeah, you should be. Like, there is a road to higher degrees of professionalism, which by the way, professionals care about always getting better, always doing better, right? It's just part of being a professional. It's part of that word. I tell people, I'm like, look, if you're like, be honest with people who ask me, I'm just starting out. How do I get started? Can I even take people's money? Yes, you can. Just be honest and upfront with them and say, hey, I'm in my first year of web design. I'm studying. I got a lot of I could produce really good quality for you. Here's some examples of my work, but I'm in my first year. I'm still doing a lot of learning, yada, yada, yada. So what I'm going to do, this is the price that I'm giving you, reflects my experience and my expertise, right? And as I continue to grow and have this relationship with you, things are going to get better and better, and then my price will go up and yada. But you're being like upfront and honest. You're not saying, well, everybody else is charging $10,000. I don't think I can do $10,000 quality work, but I'm going to charge $10,000 anyway. I don't think that does anybody any good, right? There are different levels of where people are at. And if they price accordingly, then that's great because there are businesses out there who need more of a budget provider. But they still want somebody who is treating the job like a true profession.
Yeah. SK, I know you were in there. I don't know if you actually meant to be in there or want to come back or whatever, but we could definitely have you. I know you have some questions in here. They're all related. So, I mean, You know, you're just talking about professionals always want to get better. I do want to make a point about that. We got two questions in here from SK. I think the market is growing. This was a little earlier. Market is growing in both directions. Many people want to have more of an involved / code-based interface Etch, for example. And also many want to just speak the code, like vibe coding. So, I mean, we've kind of touched on that, I feel like, a little bit, but I see that. Like, I try to, like, you know, see like the people that are getting deeper and deeper into it, and then the people that are also like kind of trying to leverage AI to build, you know, apps or websites or what have you. It's pretty impressive what you're able to do without knowing how to code now. And I think I think we would be remiss if we did not think that was going to continue to improve. I was going to tweet this or whatever the other day. I was thinking like, it's just going to keep getting better. Like there's no way it's not. Now, does that mean you shouldn't learn the things? That's not what I'm saying, but I think it's going to continue to get better. So I parlay that off of SK's asking great questions here. The real question is what the learning curve is going to be, also how much the team is going to educate and make the product better. That's kind of like related to Etch, and I know you're going to do a hell of a lot of education. But to combine those two things is the question becomes, if you're a business owner, I feel like I messaged you this directly, Kevin, the other day or whatever. We talked about it a little bit. For everyone here, the question becomes, if you think of your professional expertise on like a spectrum of technician to entrepreneur, technician to business person, or what have you, and those different buckets, it's like the question for me, this is very vulnerable, just becomes, where do I spend my time? Mm-hmm. Do I spend my time in the code, learning code, or do I spend my time like learning and actually doing, like that would be doing projects or like doing business transactions or something like that, like spending your time selling, spending your time coding, spending your time marketing? You could probably do them all for sure. And if you're your startup, obviously you have to do them all. But the idea is like, I feel like there's a level to this that I feel like a lot of times, like Kevin, like you talk to people and you're talking to those types of people where they have to do all of it because you give good business advice, you give technical advice. I think sometimes though, myself, like I get into this mode of like, I need to learn more about coding, or I need to learn more about CSS or HTML. When in reality though, doesn't have to happen like this, but you could go so deep into that you don't make any money because you're constantly worried about the other thing. So I know this is kind of like
I have the
tangential
for you.
But
yeah.
Okay.
So I have the perfect answer for you. What did I say earlier about people using Element or Divi? What language are they learning? They are learning the language of Elementor and Divi. Plain and simple. They are not learning the language of web design because those two languages are very, very different. If I say, I want to learn Spanish, where do you go to learn Spanish? Probably best to go to a Spanish-speaking country. Probably not great to go to Poland, right? It doesn't matter how long you spend in Poland, you're probably not going to come out speaking Spanish, okay? If you go into Etch, and Etch, remember, Etch empowers you to do work like you do it in Elementor. If you like, you're clicking to add elements to a page, you're filling out CSS inputs, but the language of everything you're looking at is the actual language of web design. When you look at the labels on the inputs, it's teaching you what the actual property names are. When you fill out the inputs, which by the way, writes the CSS for you, like in a visible fashion where you can see it, touch it, feel it, it's actually bidirectionally synced, right? Solved a major problem with CSS inputs and page builders. You can literally fill out the inputs, go to the CSS code and look at what it wrote and stare at it, right? And by the way, all the property names are the same names as what they were on the labels because Etch speaks the language of web design. And then you're adding things to a page and the HTML is writing itself right before your very eyes. And you're looking down there like, oh, that's how a div is made. Oh, that's how a section is made. Oh, and you're looking and you spend a week and then a month and then 6 months. You are spending a lot of time in a Spanish-speaking country here, and you are going to come out speaking Spanish. You are going to know, like, it is literally, as you do your work, teaching you the language of web design. You are immersed in it. It does not use proprietary terminology. It does not use proprietary workflows. It does everything the way it's always been done. And it uses the same words and the same language that are in the spec. And so you look at it and you're doing your work. But again, you don't have to learn these things to do your work. Like I said, you're still filling out inputs. It's writing the code for you, but you're just seeing real stuff. You're seeing real words and real information, and you're immersing yourself in that. And so when you use Etch, that's why I said a beginner should absolutely use it, because it is the only tool that's going to teach you as you use it. It's going to be the only tool that expedites your learning workflow. You go, it doesn't matter how long you spend in Elementor, you will not come out knowing the language of web design. If you spend time in Etch, you will come out knowing the language of web design. That is actual empowerment, because now I can do it. Now I'm doing stuff in VS Code that I would never have done before in VS Code because of this immersion, right? This is the kind of conclusion they're going to come to. They're going to be far more empowered by doing work this way.
Gotcha. Okay. That all made sense. I mean, I guess the only part was like the business side of it. Like, you know, the people that are
business side's a
also
completely different thing, which is if you don't aspire to, like a lot of people, okay, if they're like, I really want this opportunity of building an agency or a freelance business because I want to be location independent. I love the idea of being an entrepreneur. I love the idea of helping businesses succeed online and do their marketing and yada, yada, yada. I want to get them results. Okay, you got all these mission focused things, but do you love development or not? That is like, a lot of people will say, yes, I do. A lot of people will say, no, I don't. I'm in this for all the other things. Okay. If you can answer that honestly and say, no, I don't, then don't spend your time learning more code. Spend your time learning more business, and then hire somebody to do the development stuff. That is what a business does. You don't have to. And if you're like, well, I just want to be a one-man band. Okay. Well, then you got to do everything. You got to do everything. I wouldn't recommend that, but you do. That's just, this is just a math equation, right? But be honest with yourself. So if you don't want to do the code much, stop doing the code so much, right? Just do the business side of it, but don't go, this is the wrong conclusion. Well, I don't really want to do the code that much. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to focus on all the business stuff, and I'm just going to cut all the corners when it comes to development. I'm just going to use Elementor or Divi or whatever. I'm just going to whip these things up. I'm going to ship them out. I'm going to cash the checks. That's not the route I would recommend. That's not a true professional route, because a true professional doesn't say, well, in order to get around this lack of wanting to do things and this lack of knowing things, I'm just going to cut as many corners as I possibly can. Nobody would want to hire that agency, and no agency would be able to put that on their website. Like, come to us where we cut all the corners, right? Like, nobody's hiring you, right? You have to hide that fact away. Let's not let anybody know that that's really what we're doing behind this. That's not really the best premise for founding a business, right? That would be my argument.
Gotcha. All right. Shall we bring SK in?
Yes.
Let's see. SK, can you hear us?
Hey guys, can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, okay. First of all, I'm super excited for Etch and I'm waiting for Monday. So that's that. But I have a few different things in my mind, right? And again, I'm not coming on camera because I went for a night run and you guys spoke something. So I'm just sitting down listening, right? Okay, so most of my clients, when it comes to bricks, right? So they were initially like, business people who wanted to put something quick up, and they ended up using Elementor and all these kind of things, right? And then they realized like, oh my God, I kind of like have to build something more concrete, better build, and with better site maps and all this kind of stuff. And then they come and meet us, and probably they Googled or like they looked at Reddit or something. They're like, hey, I'm interested in this bricks thing. I noticed like people are like advocating for it online. And then I caught to like, oh, there's this new bricks thing. And that's how I learned about bricks and all that, right? So I feel like your real challenge should be like, how can we get a lot of people advocating for bricks? And you need advocating for Etch, and a lot of people need to talk about it. And then a lot of people need to be able to learn it, right? And we don't need to convert these like new entrepreneurs who are just trying to put something together to use Etch. We just need to make sure when they're ready to spend the money, when they're willing to spend like, 5 figures, 6 figures on the website, they come and ask for Etch. I think that's the key, not like, we have to go to the guy who's just putting up like a few pages. They can use Elementor or whatever they need. But when they want to build something that's like more permanent, more professional, better converting and all that, they got to ask for Etch. And that's how this should work, if you ask me.
So I don't think that there is I would ask the question, why do people feel like Elementor makes it easy for them? And
they
can't answer the question. The answer is because they don't know what they're doing. Now, if you asked, can they use Etch? The same person could use Etch. Again, you don't have to look at the code. You don't have to write code. There is one extra layer, which is and it's a very basic question. What is a selector? What is a selector? What is a class? Okay. Now, every page builder has come to the conclusion that users are so dumb that we cannot use this word class. We have to call it a preset. We have to call it we got to find like all these fancy, cute names for it. We can't call it a class. They will not understand. And I've always been like, what do you mean they won't understand? How about this? How about I record one video covering what a class is, and then everybody that watches that video goes, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever heard. And I'm like, it's just classes. But they never heard that. No other tool bothered to tell them or inform them of how this works, right? And yes, you get into like, okay, there's specificity issues and how to organize but this is all very basic education. This is all like, the thing is so many people do we have evidence where beginners, these people where these other page builders like, these people are either too dumb or they just don't care enough. They don't care to know. Well, I have direct evidence that says otherwise. Because the minute they watch Page Building 101, they ditch Elementor, they ditch Divi, and they want to do everything differently. Why? Because they were empowered with actual information. Basic facts about how web design has always worked, right? This tells me they want to do these things. They want to do it the right way, and they want to use a capable tool. The only reason somebody would say, well, Elementor is just fast and it's easy. I can whip stuff up in Etch in the same amount of time, probably less, but have none of the downsides, right? The reason they say that Elementor is faster is, one, they only speak the language of Elementor. They cannot go into another environment and feel like they know what they're doing, okay? And two, they probably have a bunch of, stuff already done, templating, whatever that they're using, or they're going to ThemeForest and grabbing something off there and plugging it in because everything uses Elementor and yada, yada, yada. This is why they come to the conclusion that it's faster. Is it faster? No, it is not fast. There's nothing proprietary about Elementor that makes it a faster workflow or an easier workflow than anything else. If you put me in Elementor, it would not be easy and it would not be fast. Why? Because it doesn't speak the language of web design. It's proprietary. I have to learn what I'm doing. I have to figure out how they're doing things and why they made the decisions that they made. And I have to navigate my way around the UI. And they don't have the things that I'm looking for and that I need, right? It's not objectively faster. It's only faster for people who have already been using it for a very long time, not because of anything that it does special, right? So I think that's the first thing that people have to admit to themselves is it's only feels faster and feels easier because I don't actually know the language of web design outside of this tool.
Yeah, I get that, right? But what I was
in Etch, could they not whip up a landing page if they understand if you bring in somebody that knows HTML and knows CSS? Do you know how fast they could whip up a landing page in Etch? Even if they've never used Etch, by the way, if they've never used Etch. Why? Because nothing is proprietary. Nothing is different. Nothing needs to be figured out. It just is the way that it should have been. And so they're empowered to do their work without any barriers or limitations. This is an education problem. This is not a tool problem. Elementor is not better, faster, easier, or anything else. There is a large user base of people who don't have proper web design education who can only use these tools. And then they come to the wrong conclusion that these other tools are harder. No, web design is hard and you don't know how to do web design. So the only option is this thing that feels easy. Why? Because you did spend whatever learning curve amount of time was there learning that one proprietary tool. And now you feel like you got traction and momentum and it's pretty easy to do what you need to do, but it has nothing to do with the tool. It has not. If you had spent the same amount of time in Etch and just watched a few videos, you would be light years better off than you are right now. I want to steer people away from these proprietary tools because it harms them dramatically in the long run and it harms their clients dramatically in the long run. It is not good for anybody, right? The standards, language, practices, best practices, these are the things that are good for developers. These are the things that are good for developers' clients and our industry as a whole. And I don't know that that can be argued with, right? Even if people have a low budget, then get a low budget provider that's still using professional tool. Like, you know, I don't have to hire the very best photographer that ever existed to shoot my wedding. I just need somebody who's competent at weddings. And if I don't have a lot of money, I might have to settle on a not so great photographer to shoot my wedding. But if that's the decision I come to, that's the decision I come to. But I don't want that person showing up with an iPhone. At least like look the part, like, you know, bring some semblance of some professional tools and do what you can do, right? That's kind of the situation that we're in.
Yeah, I get that, right? But what I was trying to say is that, you know, if you take this Elementor, right, you can go to like places like Theme Forest and you can get like a bunch of templates and put something quick together. And I empathize with the entrepreneurs and people like, you know, if you just want to set up a paint shop,
yeah,
you just want to have a website and you're going to put something quick, right? Because you are scrappy and you think you can do it. And I empathize with that. And I think that Etch will win if when they are ready to spend a lot more money, we are then, and they want to request Etch, right? Compared to like something else. And that's the way to win, because all the WordPress agents that listen to it, they get it, right? Because we have all these like secret area problem and all these things you're talking about. All that makes sense. We already bought in, right? But now we got to make sure that these entrepreneurs, these people that want to upgrade to a quote unquote professional website need to ask for Etch. And that's why we can win. If not, it's going to be a problem again because people,
yeah. No. I hear this argument all the time. I actually made a video on this exact argument. I think this has to be, it's another false premise. The question is, why do I need something fast and cheap? If I'm a business, am I a real business or am I a hobby business? Am I a broke business? What am I? What am I that I need something fast and cheap? A real business has money. This goes back to real versus aspiring. An aspiring business might be broke. You can't be a real business and be broke. Those two things don't go together, right? You're either an aspiring business, you're trying to make things work, or you made them work. You're an actual business, right? So somebody will say, well, I need something fast and cheap. What do you need something fast and cheap for? Like, let's say I am from scratch. I have no business. Okay, SK? I want to create I want to clean houses. That's my business. Okay. I want to create a house cleaning business. And I go and I say, why do I come to the conclusion? You know what I need, SK? I need a website for my business, but I don't have a lot of money because I'm an aspiring business. I need it fast and cheap. Can you put me something fast and cheap online? Even if you say yes, if you go, yeah, sure, we got these Elementor templates, I can get this thing for you online fast. What is that actually going to do for me? Am I going to out SEO all of the other home cleaning businesses? No. Objectively, no. It's not going to do anything. Whatever $500 I give you I should just light that on fire. I'd be way better off taking that $500 and running ads to a Google My Business listing or something. Like, I could do any number of things that would actually generate an ROI. A fast, dirty, quick Elementor landing page is probably going to do nada. Unless, let's say you make me a landing page. Now you're like, well, we need to run ads to that because, I mean, it's not going to get traffic by itself. Okay, so we're going to do PPC. Oh, how much money do you need for the PPC? Well, I mean, like $1,500. Well, I don't have that. If I had that, I would have needed the quick and dirty landing page for $500 that I just paid you to build. That now I can't do anything without another big bill, right? So what we have to get out of, we are in a different era now. I think a lot of people are still stuck in the era where everybody needs a website. Just everybody, you got to check the box. You have a business, so why don't you have a website? That does not exist anymore. That is a fairy tale now. Why did we need it before? Well, you could rank before. You can't rank now. There's no ranking going on with a $500 out of the box Elementor landing page for $500 on a brand new domain. That's not going to happen, right? You have to have a lot more money to put into marketing that website online. So if you don't, you either have that money or you don't. There's no quick and dirty, cheap thing. Where are the results? Show me the results that these quick and dirty Elementor sites are getting. Normally, they sit there and they do nothing. The business has to drum up customers some other form or fashion until they have enough money to then go, all right, it's time to upgrade our website. Well, what did the first one even do for you? The first one didn't even really do much other than what you drove to it manually. And you could have done that with a Google My Business listing or anything else, right? We didn't need this Elementor thing. We're still stuck in this idea that everybody needs a website. Legitimate businesses need a website. Aspiring businesses, you can make gobs of money with zero website. And I actually made the argument that I could have sold Etch with zero website. We could have done a 7-figure launch for software. If I can sell software without a website, you could sell anything without a website. So the idea that you have to drum up, like, oh, let's take this person's only $500 that they have to their name right now because they're broke and they have an aspiring business, and let's sink that into an Elementor website that isn't going to do anything for them unless they pour a whole bunch more money into it, right? I don't understand how that computes.
The one thing I have to say here, though, real quick, Kevin, is I agree with most of what you said there. The one thing I have to like ever so slightly push back on is that you didn't have a website for Etch, but you like, I think a lot of the business owners that like immediately think they need a website, they have no brand. They
Correct.
have nothing. They have nothing. So I mean, it kind of does go to the point, but as far as like that being a comparison and example, like you obviously had a lot of leverage and good faith already built up. These other people, they should be doing is they should be going and building up some level of good faith or brand or something.
$500 they have. Like they would be so much better. Put that $500 in like any offline activity. You might not be ready. Like, and this is, guys, we're agencies and freelancers. This is like blasphemy, but this is actual legitimate consulting. This is what you should be telling your customers. If somebody comes to you and says, I only have $1,000 budget for this website, I will point blank tell them you cannot afford to be online. Take that $1,000 that you have, and I will give you a laundry list of shit to go do offline to drum up more business so that you can come back to me with $5,000 or $10,000 so we can actually get started. But I will be honest with you. You cannot afford a website. You cannot afford to be online, period. You don't have a business. You have a hobby. You have an aspiring business, whatever you want to call it. You're not ready. Go build a bigger, better business and in like an infinite amount of ways. And then come back and we'll talk about the online thing. But you're not ready. You were ready for the online space in 2007 and 2009. We could put something cheap online, do a bunch of SEO tricks, tactics, whatever, start getting you organic traffic. That is not the era we live in anymore. You cannot take $1,000 and go anywhere on this internet. Okay. So I just tell them point blank. And is that turning away business? Yeah. That's what real consulting sounds like. Tell people the truth about the situation that they are currently in. We are living in 2025. This is not the era of cheap, quick, dirty online results. Just not. You got to build a legit business. You have to have a legit brand. You have to do a shitload of work. You have to pour a shitload of money into it. And if you don't have those things, you're not going to go very far. And they need to know this before we start cashing their checks.
Yeah, Kevin, I get your point. Very quick point, right? I think you already sold us on this. I mean, like, I already bought in all this, right? But I feel like I will be very, very interested to know, like, what kind of education you're going to put out, what kind of skills somebody need to have. They're going to start working with Etch, so we can think about hiring those kind of people. What are the prerequisites and all this kind of stuff? Because I think we got to start moving towards, like, not just buying into Etch, but preparing to start using Etch, that's what I'm thinking. But maybe you'll cover this next Monday,
Yeah. It's actually not a lot. If you use Elementor Divi, you have to be, or Beaver, whatever. They're all the same. They're all the same. Here's a couple things you have to do. One, you have to be comfortable relearning. You have to acknowledge that you have not learned much of anything. Okay. You have not been taught the language of web design. The tool did not help you in any form or fashion. Okay. All you know is a proprietary language called the name of the builder that you happen to be using. And so if you are okay taking a step back for a minute and saying, okay, I do need to actually learn what I'm doing here. By the way, this is true empowerment. We can have the conversation again that we've had a few times about people come to me and they're like, how do I get rid of my imposter syndrome? And I'm like, well, like a big part of that is to stop being an imposter, right? If you're using if you don't know what's going on under the hood, of course you have imposter syndrome. If your client's asking you technical questions and you don't really know the answers, of course you have imposter syndrome, right? It starts by actually learning what you're doing. That would be step one. So you have to be okay stepping out of those old environments, stepping into a new environment where the language is going to seem different. But what you have to know is this is not a proprietary language that you are relearning. You are now learning the global language of web design. Like now you are getting truly empowered in this process. And then you have to learn what classes are. Like essentially, like what is a selector? What is the difference between styling something at the ID level and assigning classes to things? And then how am I going to organize those classes? And just that alone, if you're just, okay, I'm okay with the learning curve, and I need to know what this thing called classes is. Everything else will feel very similar. Can I fill out inputs and it writes the CSS for me? Yeah, 100%. Can I click buttons and it adds elements to the page for me? Yeah, 100%. Will it do the looping for me? Yeah, 100%. Okay. So there's not like all that other stuff. You're going to slowly work your way through. The biggest hurdles is, are you mentally willing to leave the safe, feel good environment that you are currently in and actually learn what you're doing? And then can you interpret what a class is? And I think you can. And I think I proved that people very easily can understand how a class works. It's not really that hard. That's it. That's all you need.
Good stuff. I think SK dropped out there. We are over time. We got a couple things here, though. Ruben, appreciate the $2. I think that's USD, which is huge because normally it's Colombian pesos.
Man, he went deep in the pocket today.
Damn, Ruben, appreciate you, man. You did not need to give us all that. That was great.
I get $1, you get $1. So
hell yeah. And then we got another question here. Could we create plugins and site architecture in Etch in the future?
I mean, I would need examples of what you're planning on doing with those things, you know?
I feel like site architecture might be just like templating and singles archives. That's going to be obviously yes. Plugins, maybe. I mean, that. How are you going to do that? AI create a plugin, or maybe just like
I need an example of what they're actually referring to. Like, you know, WP Codebox, you can add functionality to a website, which will live in WP Codebox, but then WP Codebox allows you to extract it into its own plugin to then go easily put it here or there or deactivate it on certain sites, whatever. Like, I don't know what degree that they're talking about there.
Gotcha. Okay. I think we're good. There's one question here kind of answered as well, but how is a small business going to build their brand without at least a simple website? I mean, again, it was kind of answered. I think the Boulder got it here, but yeah, I mean, content, in-person events. I mean, again, for me, it's just, there are free ways to get attention. They take a fuck ton of time.
Yeah.
But there's free ways.
You know, so let's go back to the house cleaning thing. The challenge would be, Kevin, can you start a house cleaning business and make it super successful and not have a website? Like never deploy a website for that house cleaning business. And I like, without hesitation, I would say 1,000%. 1,000%. Now name any other thing up to software. Like if software doesn't require a website, like pretty sure nothing requires a website. But I want people to continue feeding me examples where I'd be like, okay, yeah, I guess the only exception, and this is only because it has E in the name, is an e-commerce brand. But again, if you're like, I would say, what are you selling? Give that shit to me and I will drive it somewhere and I will sell it. The internet does not, all the internet does is expand your capabilities. But everybody acts like the internet is required. What do you mean the internet is required? There's an entire world out there. And by the way, if you can't, there's a great Jay-Z line. We just spit bars.
Yeah. Please. New Nick D album. That's hot. That's
Jay-Z said, put me anywhere on God's green earth, I'll triple my worth. And if you don't have that mindset, if you don't know what that means, if you don't know, like, it doesn't matter. Give me whatever mission, put me anywhere. Okay. I will make it happen. That's the mindset of an entrepreneur, like a real fucking, like somebody that is undeniably going to be successful. That is kind of the mindset that they act with in life, right? Everybody sits around, go, what are we going to do if we aren't allowed to have a website? Go sell shit, right? There's a really awesome dude I think he just does it as a shtick now. But he goes around selling cleaner door to door, and he's like a comedian guy. I don't know his name.
I've seen that.
I wish I knew his
guy.
name.
I don't know his name.
Fucking entertaining as hell. Just sitting around watching him and listening to him. But he's like proof positive. You know, like it's a perfect example. Like, I don't know why people feel like maybe it's because the agency freelance, maybe they're believing their own lies where they've been telling their clients, you got to have a website. You got to be online. What are you going to do if you're not online? Like now they believe it themselves. That's always been a fairy tale. You could have always succeeded if you don't have a website. And again, in the era we live in, websites require so much money now. Like to make them work, they require so much money and time. The businesses would be so much, if like early stage businesses will be so much better off hustling in so many other different arenas.
Yeah, definitely always have to invest time or money. Got to pick one. Really both too, but at least at first. One from CJ here. Will plugins like WP Codebox, SureCart, etc. be compatible with Etch? I think the answer to that's yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, a lot of these developers are sitting around, and because I'm in the inner circle, like it's a common thing. People are like, oh, where do we get clients? Where do we get clients? What I'm having trouble getting my agency off the ground. My freelance business is struggling. Where do I get clients? Well, what I've identified is that a lot of these people are sitting behind a keyboard going, how do I make this keyboard work? How do I make this keyboard find me work? Like, how do I digitally do this? And the answer is the same answer I gave a minute ago. Like, if you get out from behind the keyboard, there's an infinite world out there where you can go make deals and opportunities. It's your insistence on, I must find a way to do this online that is actually holding you back. And if you put your own clients into that same lens, it's going to hold them back in the same form and fashion, right? You like the best way in a lot of cases is to get out from behind the keyboard.
Gotcha. I think last one here we got is, will Etch be able to modify any aspect of a WooCommerce website, like cart, checkout, etc.?
Put that up again one more time.
The WooCommerce, like the templates for the WooCommerce stuff.
I mean, no, like that's not really its purpose. It's not to develop, it's not to like hack into other people's plugins and such. I don't even know that you would want to do that because now you're incompatible with updates and so on and so forth.
I think Bricks has WooCommerce templates that you can set. It's just another template.
No, but he means actually hack into edit the WooCommerce code is what it sounded like.
I thought he meant cart checkout templates and such, but
I mean, if you're just talking templates, for sure, 100%.
Okay. We shall find out. Cool. I think we're good here. This has been fantastic. A little over time, but I thought it was all great. What do you guys think?
Yeah. It was fun. Sweet. Drop comments below, and remember wptownhall.show/OmniSend. Thanks to OmniSend for sponsoring. And we'll be back 2 weeks?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Press conf pretty soon. Lots coming up.
Press conf
exciting year.
Monday is the public demo. etchwp.com if you want to get on the list for the public demo. It's going to be one event. We're not going to do a multi-series event kind of thing. It's one event. It is not a presentation. It's not a sales pitch. There's no slides. All you are going to see. I think I saw somebody like, what's going to happen on Monday? It is literally going to be a demo, let me walk you through. Here's exactly what it looks like. Here's exactly how it works. I'm using it in front of your eyes. I'm explaining the decisions that we made along the way, what it does differently, why these things are important. It is a full-blown demo where you just come to the conclusion that you want to come to at the end of it, whether you're going to be in or you're not in. We're not worried either way. It's completely up to you. This is an opportunity for people. Essentially, first time we did it, people were like, look, I love you. I love these ideas. I can't see anything. And just out of principle, I'm not going to buy because I can't see anything. This is your opportunity to see the thing. And so that solves that. And now we can all move forward, right?
Awesome. Love it. Looking forward to it. Appreciate y'all. Talk to you in the next one.
We'll be back.
See you.